In vandagse video gaan ons spesifiek kyk na vraestel 1 hersiening. In today's video, we are going to be discussing revision for paper 1. Ons gaan spesifiek kyk na die formaat van vraestel 1, want die formaat sal vir ons sê wat ons moet leer en wat ons moet voorberei vir die vraestel. En dit gee ook vir ons leidrade oor hoe om die vraestel te beantwoord. Dan gaan ons ook kyk spesifiek na afdeling A, die leesbegrip in hierdie video. So in this video specifically, we are going to be looking at the format of paper 1. The format of paper 1 will prepare you on what you need to study for paper 1, and we are going to specifically be looking at section A, the comprehension section. Vir vandag se hersieningsles gaan ons die Maart 2019 IEB Vraestel as 'n voorbeeld gebruik. For today's revision lesson, we will be using the March 2019 IEB examination paper as an example. So die eerste ding wat ons wil doen as ons vraestel kry, is om te kyk hoeveel tyd ons het om aan hierdie vraestel te spandeer. The first thing we want to look at when we get our paper is to see what our time allocation is and how much time we have to spend on this paper. So vraestel 1 sal gewoonlik tussen 2 en 3 ure lank wees. Paper 1 is usually between 2 and 3 hours in length. Dit is baie belangrik dat jy kyk na die tydsberekening om seker te maak jy spandeer die volle tyd aan jou vraestel en dat jy nie uit tyd uit hardloop nie. So it's very important to look at the time allocation and gauge how much time to spend on each section so that you don't run out of time. Dan kyk ons ook na die punte toekenning. We also look at the mark allocation. Ons sien dat hierdie vraestel uit 100 punte bestaan. We see that this paper is a total of 100 marks. Dan is dit baie belangrik dat jy die instruksies lees. I cannot express this enough. It's very important that you read through the instructions. Baie keer aanvaar ons dat die instruksies vir elke vraestel dieselfde bly en ons skip verby hierdie gedeelte, maar dit is baie belangrik dat julle dit nie doen nie, want partykeer verander die instruksies en die kinders mis die instruksie omdat hulle aanneem dat al die instruksies altyd dieselfde bly. So it's very important that you read through all the instructions. It's very easy to assume that the instructions stay the same every year, but often some instructions have changed and kids have skipped past this part and they miss the instruction and that costs them dearly. So please make sure you read the instructions. Kom ons lees die instruksies. Die eerste instruksie sê, hierdie vraestel bestaan uit 17 bladsye. Maak seker dat jou vraestel volledig is. Very important, this paper consists of 17 pages. So look at your paper, scroll through the pages, see if all 17 pages are in the paper. Dan instruksie nommer 2, hierdie vraestel bestaan uit 4 afdelings. So make sure that you are aware that this paper consists of 4 sections. Die eerste een is afdeling A, die leesbegrip vir 30 punte. Die tweede een is afdeling B, die opsomming vir 10 punte. Die derde een is afdeling C, poësie vir 30 punte. En die laaste een is afdeling D, taalvaardighede vir 30 punte. Kom ons gebruik 'n paar minute om te besluit hoeveel tyd ons moet spandeer aan watter afdelings. Let's take a few minutes to unpack how much time we should be spending on all of these sections. So as ons mooi dink daaraan, afdeling A en afdeling B gaan tekste hê wat jy nog nooit voorheen gesien het nie. So dit gaan jou langer neem om deur die tekste te lees en te verstaan wat in die teks aangaan en dan die vrae te beantwoord. So if we look at section A and section B, our comprehension and our summary passages are going to be passages that we've never seen before. So we want to spend a little bit more time on section A and section B because we need to thoroughly read through these sections. We need to make sure we understand the passages and we need to answer the questions. So, my raad vir julle en my wenk vir julle hier is, spandeer ten minste 1 uur aan afdeling A en afdeling B. So I would say, based on your time allocation, we have 2.5 hours, so I would spend at least 1 hour on section A and section B. Alright, so this would give you enough time to read through the passages, read through the questions, go back and look for the answers in the passages, and then write down your answers. Dan kom ons by afdeling C. Nou afdeling C is jou poësie en wat lekker is van hierdie afdeling is dat jy reeds 2 van die gedigte moes leer. So Section C is going to take you a lot less time because you have already studied 2 of the poems that are going to be in your paper. So these are going to be really easy to answer because you've studied the poem, you studied the notes, you studied the questions, and you studied the answers. So this should take not as long as section A and B. The exception here is that you are going to get an unprepared poem, a poem that you have not seen before. So you would have to read that carefully, read the questions carefully, and you might spend a little bit more time there. So omdat afdeling C 2 gedigte het wat jy reeds gesien het en 1 ongesiene gedig, gaan ek voorstel jy spandeer ten minste 45 minute aan afdeling C. Use about 45 minutes for this section. Dit is omdat jy jou ongesiene gedig moet lees, jy gaan die vrae moet lees en jy gaan die vrae moet beantwoord. Maar onthou, dit gaan jou nie so lank vat om die eerste 2 gedigte te beantwoord nie, want jy het reeds daai gedigte bestudeer, jy het reeds al die notas bestudeer, jy weet wat die vraag is en jy weet wat die antwoorde is. So this is also why it's very, very important to study those poems, because that makes answering the questions so much easier. You already know all the facts, all the information, all the figures of speech in the poem. Now all you need to do is answer the questions, and most of the questions for your scene poems are exactly the same as what you have been dealing with in class. Dan kom ons by die laaste afdeling. By die laaste afdeling wil ons ook 45 minute gebruik. So section D we also want to use 45 minutes. So afdeling D is eintlik die maklikste van al die afdelings, want dit is jou taalvraag en jy het taal die hele jaar al gedoen. So section D is actually the easiest one to answer because you've been doing language concepts throughout the year. You've been doing sentence structure, you've been doing word structure, you have already been practicing all of this. All you have to do now is read the question, answer the question, read the question, answer the question. And here, it won't be anything that you have not done before. You will get turning the sentence into a negative, turning a sentence into an indirect and direct speech, changing the sentence to leidende and bedrijvende form, active and passive voice. You would get joining the sentences with a conjunction, starting the sentence with a conjunction, giving the correct form of the word, changing the word to meervoud of verkleining, diminutive or plural. So these are all things that you've been doing the entire time. So that's why I'm saying for section D, spend 45 minutes. Now, if I add up all these minutes, I will see that there is 15 minutes extra that I can use if I want to go through all my answers, make sure I've answered every question, make sure I haven't left anything out, make sure that I've answered full sentences where full sentences have been asked. If there's a question that I skipped because I didn't know the answer, I can then use these 15 minutes to go back to that question and think about a possible answer. So now het ek 15 minute oor as ek al hierdie minute optel, sien ek het nog 15 minute van my tyd oor en ek kan daai 15 minute gebruik om terug te gaan en seker te maak ek het al my vrae beantwoord. As daar 'n vraagie is wat ek byvoorbeeld nie in die begin kon beantwoord het nie, gaan ek nou 'n bietjie tyd spandeer om daai vraag te beantwoord. And it also gives you that bit of leeway where if you need to spend a bit more time on your section A and section B, you do have some more time. Alright. So, daai 15 minute gee ook vir jou die geleentheid om bietjie ekstra tyd te spandeer, byvoorbeeld aan afdeling B en afdeling A, waar dit baie gaan oor wat jy verstaan het van die teks. Okay, kom ons beweeg aan. Instruksie nommer 3 sê, beantwoord al die vrae. En dit is baie belangrik. Ek sien baie van julle wat vrae ooplaat. En dit is so belangrik dat jy al die vrae beantwoord, want 'n mens weet nooit, jou antwoord is dalk net reg. Om 'n antwoord uit te laat gee vir jou dadelik 0, maar om iets daar te skryf, die kans is groot dat jy dalk die punt gaan kry. So this instruction is actually very important because I see a lot of kids leaving out questions or leaving questions blank. The chances are that your answer might actually be right. So rather than getting a 0 for a blank answer the question. Even though you think it might be wrong, it might not be. Okay, en dan sê dit, beplan jou antwoorde deeglik voordat jy dit neerskryf. Very important. Think about your answer before writing it down. Plan your answer before writing it down. Alright? Begin elke afdeling op 'n nuwe bladsy. So they want you to answer each section on a new page, so that's very important. So you're going to answer section A on one page. If it takes 2 pages, that's also okay. If you get to the second page and you're only halfway through and the section is done, discontinue with that page, start your new page, section B. Okay. Nommer jou antwoorde soos wat die vraag op die vraestel genommer is. You must keep your answer, the numbers of your answer, the same as what the paper is expecting of you. Please be careful not to make mistakes in the numbering of your questions, because this causes a lot of confusion and you lose a lot of marks if you number incorrectly. Dan nommer 7, alle vrae moet in Afrikaans beantwoord word. This is very important. Remember, it is an Afrikaans paper, so we want to see your communication skills in Afrikaans. All the questions need to be answered in Afrikaans as far as possible. Dit is in jou eie belang om leesbaar te skryf en jou werk netjies aan te bied. Very important. Remember, teachers are not forensic scientists. We cannot decipher hieroglyphs. It's very important that you write eligibly and neatly. Okay, en nou gaan ons oorgaan na so 'n paar wenke om 'n leesbegrip of afdeling A te beantwoord. We are now going to go into some tips and tricks on how to answer section A, the comprehension. Okay, ons gaan nou spesifiek kyk na afdeling A, vraag 1, die leesbegrip. So we are now going to focus on specifically section A, your comprehension section, question 1, the comprehension passage. So question 1 will always be a passage that's given to you. It can be an article, it can be a blog, it can be an informational text, it can be a part of a short story, and you have to read this, read the questions, and then answer questions based on your understanding of what you have read. So question 1, 2, and 3 in paper 1 is usually your comprehension-based questions. But questions 2 and 3 will be visual text that you need to analyze. It can be a cartoon, an infographic, an advert, any of those. And this is part of comprehension because it's still testing your understanding of what you are reading. So, vraag 1 is gewoonlik jou leesbegrip waar jy 'n teks kry om te lees. Dit kan 'n artikel wees, kan 'n koerantberig wees, dit kan 'n blog wees, dit kan 'n inligtingsteks wees, dit kan 'n stukkie uit 'n kort verhaal wees. Dan is daar vrae gebaseer op die teks wat jy moet antwoord. Nou in vraag 1 toets ons of jy verstaan wat jy lees. Vraag 2 en 3 is dan gewoonlik jou visuele letterkunde en dit het nog steeds te doen met verstaan jy wat jy lees. So ons toets nog steeds in vraag 2 en 3 of jy verstaan wat jy lees. So daarom is afdeling A se naam leesbegrip. That's why we call section A comprehension. We want to understand and see if you know what you are reading, if you know what the visual literacy that we gave you means. Okay. So kom ons kyk na die eerste stap wanneer ons 'n leesbegrip doen. What is the first step to take when we do a reading comprehension? So die eerste ding wat ons wil doen is ons wil vlug lees. We want to read through this rather quickly. So read through the passage very quickly. Lees die teks vinnig, want jy wil weet waaroor dit gaan. And this is to give you an idea of what the text is about. You're not looking for detail just yet. You're just trying to understand what the passage is about. And how do we understand what a passage is about? A lot of times you get to Afrikaans test, you look at the passage and you have no idea what's going on. The way we understand a passage is by making connections to the vocabulary in the passage, which is why it's so important to expose yourself to reading different Afrikaans texts. So all the exercises that you've done on comprehension passages have been building your vocab. So when you get to a vocab in your test, you will see the same kind of words in the text, and that will help you build understanding of the text. So ons wil vlug lees, dan wil ons soek lees. Nou soek lees is so bietjie meer besonderhede wat ons soek. So the next thing that we are going to do is we are going to read for information. Lees die teks 'n tweede keer aandagtig onderstreep die belangrike woorde. So first we've read it to get an idea of what's going on. Now we are going to read it carefully and closely in detail, and we are going to underline words that are important to us. So here it can be words that you understand from the passage. It can be words that you don't understand from the passage. It can be words that indicate a certain detail, like the person's emotions, the action that's been happening, what happened next. All of these can be underlined. Dan lees ons elke vraag. So next we read the questions. And can you see there are 2 steps that you needed to follow before you actually get to the questions. So, eerstens vlug lees ons, dan soek lees ons, en dan lees ons elke vraag. Okay. En hier wil ons weer vraagwoorde onderstreep, sodat ons weet wat die vraag soek. So, a very important thing that I tell the students when they are answering a reading comprehension is that they need to understand the question. And the only way to do that is to highlight important parts of the question. Words like waarom, wat, wanneer, hoe. Those are words that tell you what the expectation of the question is. So waarom het die kind? Why did the child do something? And you know that you need to respond to why. You need to go and look for a reason in the passage. Wat het gebeur nadat? What happened after? So now you know you need to look for an event. Wat? So you're going to look for an event in the passage. Wanneer het die ongeluk gebeur? When did the accident occur? So wanneer, you are going to look for a date. When. Okay. So wanneer ons die vraag gelees het en ons verstaan waaroor die vraag gaan, dan soek ons die antwoorde in die teks. So only after we've quickly read through the passage, then read for detail, read all the questions, highlighted the important words in the questions, then we are going to go back and look for the answers in the text. And how do we do that? We underline in pencil what the important information is. So we're going to underline in pencil the important information. So whatever the text says, and you know what questions you have read, so you know what information you are looking for, go and underline the information. Die ander belangrike ding wat ek vir julle wil sê van 'n leesbegrip is dat nie al die antwoorde in die leesbegrip gaan wees nie. Remember, not all the answers will come directly from the passage. Ons wil sien of jy verstaan waaroor die teks gaan. En dit beteken ons wil baie kritiese denke sien. So ons gaan vragies vra soos, wat dink jy? Hoe weet jy? Waarom sê jy so? So, we also want to see some critical thinking, and we want to test if you understood what you read. So a lot of the questions are going to be based on your thinking process. So you won't find the answers to these type of questions in the passage per se. Questions like, what did you think about the writer's reaction? How do you feel about this character's actions? What would you say about the events that happened? So these kind of questions are not questions that you're going to find answers for in the passage. This is critical thinking, and that's why it's so important to understand what you are reading. Ons gaan nou vlugtig deur die teks lees. Dan gaan ons soek lees en daarna die vraag lees. Ek het ook hierdie vraestel vir julle in PDF formaat in die kursus gesit, sodat julle die leesbegrip afdeling kan oefen nadat julle hierdie video gekyk het. We are now going to scan over the article, then we are going to read it carefully, and then we are going to read the questions. I've also provided a PDF version of this section of the paper in your course so that you can complete it after watching this video. Hier kan ek sien dit is 'n internetartikel en die titel van die artikel is Klop FOMO jy kan. Nou as ek dink aan die titel en wat dit kan beteken, in Afrikaans wanneer ons sê ons klop iets, beteken dit om iets te oorwin of iets te oorkom, en dan is daar die aanmoediging jy kan. So ek weet hulle probeer my aanmoedig om FOMO te oorkom. So this is an internet article, and I can see from the title, this is about beating FOMO, and it says there, Klop FOMO, which is beating FOMO, and jy kan, you can. Alright, let's quickly read this. So nadat ons klaar is met vluglees, beweeg ons aan na soeklees. Dit is waar ons vir besonderhede gaan lees. So, ons gaan belangrike inligting onderstreep. So now we move on to reading the passage in more detail, and we are going to read through it slowly, and we are going to highlight any information that we think is important or that gives us an idea of what this passage is about. So ons het nou reeds die titel bespreek, so ons gaan dadelik wegspring met paragraaf 1. Is jy verslaaf aan sosiale media? Hoekom? So the first thing that this article starts off with is a question. Are you addicted to? Verslaaf aan is addicted to. So you might see this again in some other texts. So verslaaf aan is addicted to. Are you addicted to social media and why? Jou ma wil hê jy moet tuis bly om te help kas regbraak. Jy spring dan maar so brom aan die werk. Jy is sielsongelukkig omdat jy nie saam met jou vriende kan uitgaan nie. So paragraph 2 says, it's creating a scenario and it's saying your mom wants you to help her pack the cupboards. You jump in and help her, but you mumble below your breath because you're not very happy about the situation. Because you want to go out with your friends and you see them going out, but you now have to help your mom. Maar elke paar minute loer jy op jou selfoon om te sien wat jou pelle aanvang. En dan is jy weer van vooraf kwaad, want hulle geniet die lewe gate uit. As jy 'n tipiese tiener is, spandeer jy baie tyd op sosiale media, maar het jy so 'n obsessie daarmee dat jy jou gesin ignoreer as julle saam in 'n restaurant kuier? So paragraph 3 continues the scenario and it says, even though you're helping your mom, are you looking on your phone every few minutes to see what your friends are doing? And then you get upset because you see them enjoying life while you are helping mom pack the cupboards? And if you are a typical teenager, you spend a lot of time on social media. But has it become such an obsession that you are able to ignore your family when you guys sit together and visit at a restaurant, for example? Dan is FOMO, die vrees om op iets uit te mis, besig om jou lewe oor te neem. FOMO beteken ook dat jy dink ander mense se lewens is interessanter of beter as joune. Jy wonder dalk ook hoekom jy nog net 5 likes op jou jongste Facebook plasing gekry het. Of hoekom niemand kommentaar lewer op die oulike prentjie wat jy gedeel het. So paragraph 4 goes on to explain what FOMO is. So based on the scenario that they've described, they are saying this is FOMO. FOMO is when you have that obsession and you start ignoring your family because you have to check your social media. FOMO, and the meaning is explained in paragraph 4, is the fear of missing out. So die vrees om op iets uit te mis. En as dit besig is om jou lewe oor te neem, dan is dit iets waarna jy moet kyk. So FOMO becomes a problem when it starts taking over your life, when you are constantly fearing that you are missing out on something. Then it continues to say, FOMO beteken ook dat jy dink ander mense se lewens is interessanter of beter as joune. FOMO also means that you think that other people's lives are better or more interesting than your own. Jy wonder dalk ook hoekom jy nog net 5 likes vir jou jongste Facebook plasing gekry het. FOMO also includes constantly worrying about why only 5 people have liked your newest or your latest Facebook post. So a Facebook plasing is a Facebook post. Of hoekom niemand kommentaar lewer op die oulike prentjie wat jy gedeel het nie. FOMO also means that you are constantly worried about why no one's commented on the cute picture that you just shared. Gedeel, that is shared. Ag nee wat, dis hoogtyd om van jou FOMO ontslae te raak. Volg net hierdie maklike wenke. So paragraph 5 says, it's time to get rid of this FOMO. And the article is actually going to give you tips on how to get rid of FOMO. The first tip that they give you, die eerste wenk wat hulle vir jou gee, beperk jou skermtyd. Beperk means limit. Skermtyd is screen time. You're going to see these words pop up often since we are living in a world that is controlled by technology, and a lot of the articles that come out now are based on things like this. And it's possible that the Afrikaans teachers and the examiners will use passages that are realistic and relevant, so you might be seeing these words all the time, so keep that in mind. Beperk jou skermtyd, limit your screen time. Om jou selfoon by die huis te laat, voel asof jy 'n ledemaat agtergelaat het. Vat dus maar jou foon saam, maar probeer om dit vir 30 minute te ignoreer. Ignoreer dit die volgende dag 'n uur lank en 'n uur en 'n half die volgende dag, totdat jy gewoond raak daaraan om dit minder te gebruik. Jy sal uitvind dat jy meer tyd het om ander dinge te doen wat jy geniet. So here it says, to leave your phone at home feels like you've lost a limb. Okay, a ledemaat, yeah, is a limb. So they aren't suggesting that you leave your phone at home, but what they are saying is, take your phone with you, but try and ignore it for 30 minutes on the first day. Then ignore it for an hour the next day. Then ignore it for half an hour the next day. Until you become accustomed to using it less and less. Gewoond raak aan means to get used to something or to become accustomed with something. Jy sal uitvind dat jy meer tyd het om ander dinge te doen wat jy geniet. So after spending less time on your phone, you'll find out you have a lot more time to do the things that you enjoy. Let's look at the second tip, die tweede wenk. Wees realisties. Al begeer jy elke uitrusting wat die Kardashians op sosiale media aan het, is die werklikheid dat jy dit nooit sal kry nie. Moenie jouself onder druk plaas nie. So here it says, be realistic. Even if you desire every piece of clothing that the Kardashian posts on social media, that is not the reality, and you can never get all those outfits. So don't place yourself under that amount of pressure. Wees rustig, be calm. Aanvaar, jy kan net een ding op 'n slag doen. En respekteer die mense rondom jou, deur hulle jou volle aandag te gee. Ons leef in 'n dol en besige wêreld. As jy nie haastig op pad na die sportoefening is nie, doen jy huiswerk. Soms moet jy net 'n blaaskans neem. Neem tyd om te fokus op dit wat jy in 'n gegeewe oomblik doen. Of dit nou eet, studeer, kuier of klets is. Leef vir die oomblik. So here it's telling us to be calm, and what it's meaning there is that we have to accept that we cannot always multitask. So it's better to respect the people around you and pay full attention to them than trying to carry out a conversation as well as being on your phone on social media. Rather pay attention to the person who you are currently talking with and don't try and multitask. So volle aandag, that is undivided attention. Ons leef in 'n dol en besige wêreld. We live in such a busy, chaotic world. If we aren't hurriedly on the way to our sports practice or doing homework, there's always something going on. Sometimes we just need to take a break. 'n Blaaskans, a break. Neem tyd om te fokus op dit wat jy in 'n gegeewe oomblik doen. Focus on what you are doing in the moment, in a given moment. Gegewe, given. So in that given moment, whether it's eating or studying or visiting or chatting, try and pay attention and focus on what you are doing in that moment. Leef vir die oomblik. Don't try and distract yourself in that moment when you are eating or studying or visiting or chatting with social media. Try and live in the moment. Taste the food. Look at what you are studying. Visit with your friends. Chat to them like a normal person. Okay, dan, doen wat saak maak. Do what matters. Jy moet bepaal wat vir jou belangrik is en jou prioriteite agter mekaar kry. Maak dit saak dat jy nie by die partytjie van die jaar gaan wees nie, of maak dit van jou 'n beter mens deur eerder jou ouers te help met die voorbereiding van 'n familiebraai. So in this paragraph it says, do what matters most. You need to decide, decide wat vir jou belangrik is. You need to decide what is important to you. En jou prioriteite agter mekaar kry. You need to get your priorities straight. Does it really matter that you won't be attending the party of the year? Or does it make you a better person to rather help your parents with preparation for the family bride? So it's up to you to prioritize which one is more important. Wees dankbaar. Be thankful. So dankbaar is thankful. Sosiale media help ons om bande met vriende en familie te bou. Dit gee ook 'n kykie in ander mense se lewens. Maar onthou, dit is nie regtig 'n ware weerspieëling wat regtig aangaan nie. Mense deel gewoonlik net goed wat hulle wil hê ander mense moet sien. Daardie goed wat hulle en hul lewe wonderlik laat lyk. Wees dankbaar vir wat jy het en hou op om jou lewe met ander se lewens te vergelyk. Okay. So the last tip that they are giving you is to be thankful. And the writer says social media can help us build connections and build bonds with friends and family. So bande, bonds, behou, maintain. Social media helps us maintain bonds with family and friends. That's true. It gives us a look into the lives of other people. That's also true. Maar onthou, dit is nie regtig 'n ware weerspieëling van wat regtig aangaan nie. Remember, social media is not a true reflection. Weerspieëling, that's a reflection. It's not a true reflection of what's really going on. Mense deel gewoonlik net goed wat hulle wil hê ander mense moet sien. People only share things that they want other people to see. They only share those things that make their life look wonderful. They aren't going to share the bad things with you. Wees dankbaar vir dit wat jy het en hou op om jou lewe met ander se lewens te vergelyk. So, be thankful for what you have and don't compare your life to the life of others. Daar het jy dit nou. Wees dapper en neem die groot stap om sosiale media se baas te wees en nie andersom nie. So the article ends off with saying, there you have it. Daar het jy dit nou, there you have it. Wees dapper, be brave, neem die groot stap, take the big step, om sosiale media se baas te wees, to be the boss of social media, and not the other way around. Andersom, not the other way around. Dan lees ons hierso, dit is verwerk uit Huisgenoot 9 September 2016. Okay, ons vlugleesaktiwiteit het ons 'n idee gegee waaroor die teks gaan. Ons soekleesaktiwiteit het vir ons meer besonderhede en detail gegee oor die teks. Nou moet ons die vraag lees. Dit is baie belangrik om te verstaan wat die vraag sê en om ook te kyk na die punte toekenning vir elke vraag, sodat jy seker maak jy beantwoord genoeg vir die punte wat jy moet verdien. So we have read through the passage quickly and then we read the passage for more detail and more in depth. Now we are going to read the questions. What's important when reading the questions is that you understand what the question is asking and that you look carefully at the mark allocation to tell you what you need to answer and how much you would need to answer for your answer to be sufficient and worthy of the mark. So kom ons begin met vraag 1.1. Vraag 1.1 sê, haal een voorbeeld van stereotypering uit paragraaf 3 aan. So what the question is asking is that you quote an example of stereotyping from paragraph 3. So what's important when I read that question is, firstly, I need to quote, which means I need my quotation marks. Secondly, I need to know what a stereotype is. So a stereotype is a generalization. So we are going to go to paragraph 3 and we are going to see if they made a generalization. So kom ons gaan na paragraaf 3 toe. En as ek mooi lees, dan sien ek hierso in paragraaf 3 sê dit, as jy 'n tipiese tiener is, spandeer jy baie tyd op sosiale media. Nou 'n tipiese tiener is dadelik 'n stereotype, en dat hulle sê dat iemand baie spandeer op sosiale media as hulle tipiese tiener is 'n duidelike stereotype. So yeah, they have stereotyped teenagers by saying that typically teenagers spend a lot of time on social media. Alright, so ek gaan daai sinnetjie vat en ek gaan dit aanhaal, ek gaan my aanhalingstekens sit en ek gaan die sin skryf. So I'm going to take that sentence, use my quotation marks, write the sentence, and that's going to be my answer. 1.2, noem een nadeel van sosiale media as jy saam met jou gesin uitgaan. So they are asking for a disadvantage of social media when going out with your family. And I remember reading the parts about going out with your family and how you tend to ignore them when you are going out with them. So let's go back to that part there, and it's actually quite close to my previous answer, and it says, het jy so obsessie daarmee dat jy jou gesin ignoreer as jy saam in 'n restaurant kuier? So one of the disadvantages of social media is that you end up ignoring your family when you are at a restaurant because you are obsessed with social media. So nou gaan ek dit in 'n sin skryf. Een van die nadele van sosiale media is dat jy jou gesin ignoreer omdat jy obsessie het daarmee. En dan 1.3 verduidelik in jou eie woorde wat FOMO is. Moenie die vertaling gee nie. Okay, so this is very important because it says that you have to explain in your own words what FOMO is, and you are not allowed to translate. Okay, so when I think about FOMO, the fear of missing out, in Afrikaans it would be something like die vrees om uit te mis op iets, die vrees om uitgelaat te voel, die vrees om nie by alles betrokke te wees nie. You can say it in so many various ways. So that you are going to use as your answer there. 1.4. Hoe kan jy vir mense wys dat hulle vir jou saak maak en dat jy vir hulle respek het? How would you be able to show people that they matter to you and that you respect them? Now, I remember reading in the passage that it was saying that if I respect someone, I will pay full attention to them. Respekteer die mense rondom jou deur hulle jou volle aandag te gee. There it is there. So how would you prove to people that they matter to you and that you respect them? Jy gee vir daardie persoon jou volle aandag. You give them your full attention. 1.5 haal een woord uit die teks aan om te wys dat tieners se lewens mal en bedrywig is. So here they want me to quote one word to prove that a teenager's life is crazy and busy. And I remember reading that when they said that we have sports and we have homework and all sorts of things that we need to balance. There we are. Ons leef in 'n dol en besige wêreld. Now, you need to remember what the question says. It says haal een woord, so only one word. The word there would be dol. In Afrikaans, we use the word dol to say that something is chaotic. And remember, you need to put it in quotation marks. Onthou jou aanhalingstekens en die woord wat ons daar wil gebruik is dol. By 1.6 het hulle vir ons 'n stelling gegee en dan is daar 2 vragies oor die stelling. So here they've given us a statement with 2 questions based on the statement. Let's read the statement. Sosiale media bring ons onder die verkeerde indruk van wat in ander mense se lewens aangaan. Social media gives us the wrong impression of what is happening in other people's lives. Then 1.6.1, 1.6.1 is die bogenoemde stelling waar of onwaar. Is this statement true or false? Now, based on what I read in this passage, this statement is true. Waar. En dan 1.6.2 sê, haal uit die teks aan om jou antwoord te bewys. You can quote from the passage to prove your answer. So, ons gaan iets soek wat vir ons sê dat sosiale media vir ons die verkeerde indruk skep van wat in ander mense se lewens aangaan. We are going to look for a quote that will prove this statement, because remember we said that this statement is true. Ek onthou ek het iets gelees waar dit sê, dit is nie 'n regte weerspieëling, hierso is dit sommer. Maar onthou, dis nie 'n ware weerspieëling van wat regtig aangaan nie. Of ek kan self sê, mense deel gewoonlik net goed wat hulle wil hê ander mense moet sien. So you've got two options here, two quotes that you can use. Firstly, you could say, in quotation marks, dit is nie regtig 'n ware weerspieëling van wat regtig aangaan nie. It's not a true reflection of what's really going on. Of jy kan aanhaal, mense deel gewoonlik net goed wat hulle wil hê ander mense moet sien. So, you could also quote, people only want you to see the good stuff, not the bad stuff. Alright, so dit is die aanhaling wat dan nou hierdie stelling waar maak. That's the quote that will make the statement true. Kom ons kyk na vraag 1.7. Gee 'n voorbeeld uit die teks waar tieners moontlik groepsdruk kan beleef. So give an example from the passage of where teenagers would possibly be experiencing peer pressure. So wat belangrik is hier is dat jy verstaan waar groepsdruk kan plaasvind. So kom ons dink aan 'n paar situasies. Groepsdruk kan plaasvind by die skool. Dit kan plaasvind by 'n partytjie. Dit kan plaasvind op die sportveld. Dit kan plaasvind by die inkopiesentrum, kuier saam met jou vriende. Enigiets soos dit kan 'n groepsdruk situasie wees. So what's important here is you understand where peer pressure can take place. So we all have been exposed to peer pressure, and we know most of the time peer pressure happens at school, for example. It can happen on the sports field sometimes. It can definitely happen at a party. And I remember reading something about a party. So kom ons gaan kyk, ek onthou ek het iets gelees van 'n partytjie. So waar kan ek 'n voorbeeld kry van waar groepsdruk moontlik beleef kan word? Hierso waar dit sê, maak dit saak dat jy nie by die partytjie van die jaar gaan wees nie. So here where it's saying, does it really matter that you won't be at the party of the year? I can definitely see peer pressure happening there, because your friends will be saying to you that you have to come, that you have to sneak out of the house. So there's all sorts of peer pressure that can take place. Yeah. So ek kan sien hier kan groepsdruk plaasvind, want jou vriende kan vir jou sê, ag man, jy weet, sluip by die huis uit, kom net vir 'n uur of 2, moenie 'n sussie wees nie. So daar's baie groepsdruk wat hier kan plaasvind. So ek gaan dit as 'n voorbeeld gee van my groepsdruk. I'm going to give that as an example from the text. Groepsdruk kan plaasvind by 'n partytjie wat jy nie bywoon nie. Peer pressure can take place at a party which you don't attend or can't attend. 1.8 Soms moet jy net blaaskans neem. So they've given you a quote here. En wat beteken dit? Beteken is mean. So what does this particular quote mean? And they've given you A, B or C as an option. A sê jy moet jou asem uitblaas. You have to release your breath. B sê jy moet meer kansse in die lewe neem. You should take more chances in life. C sê jy moet tyd vat om te rus. And then it's clear to me that the answer is C, you have to take time to rest. In Afrikaans, wanneer ons sê jy het 'n blaaskans nodig, sê ons jy kort rus, jy moet rus vat. So this expression here doesn't mean to party, doesn't mean to release your breath, doesn't mean to take more chances. It means to rest. Skryf die korrekte alfabetletter langs die vraagnommer neer. So hier het hulle 'n instruksie gegee vir daardie vraag. Jy moet slegs die vraagnommer en die alfabetletter neerskryf. So the instruction to this question continues and it says you only need to write the alphabet letter next to the number. You don't have to write out the entire sentence. So 1.9, waarom is die woorde sosiale media ironies? Fokus op die betekenis van die woord sosiale. Okay, this was one of those questions we had to think outside of the box a little bit. And the question says, why? Why is the word social media ironic? Now think about what ironic means. Dink aan die woord ironies. Ironies beteken, dit is eintlik 'n teenstrydigheid. Want sosiaal beteken dat jy die heeltyd met mense in omgang is en dat jy die heeltyd met mense in kommunikasie is, maar wanneer ons die heeltyd op sosiale media is, onttrek ons eintlik van ons huidige sosiale omstandighede. So, irony is when something seems very contradictory, which is exactly what happens with social media. Social media means that you are socializing with people all the time, and that is true. But when we inspect it a bit further, we realize that while we are socializing on social media, we are actually being antisocial in our current social situation. So for example, while you are chatting away to your friends, you are actually ignoring your mom. So that's what makes it ironic. So dan moet ons nou fokus op die betekenis van die woord sosiale. So as ek my antwoord gaan gee, gaan ek sê, sosiale beteken dat ons baie met mense kommunikeer. Maar wanneer ons op sosiale media is, kommunikeer ons nie met die mense om ons nie. En daarom is die woord ironies. So dis 'n bietjie van 'n sin wat jy hier gaan skryf, so 'n bietjie van 'n paragraaf, so 'n bietjie van 'n verduideliking. It is a bit of an explanation. It needs a bit of sentences to explain the question. So make sure that your sentence structure is nice and neat and understandable, and that you aren't using English words, and that your sentence structure makes sense. Okay, julle, ons het nou na die vragies gekyk en ons het kyk waar kry ons die antwoorde. Ek gaan nou vir julle 'n paar wenke gee oor hoe om vrae te beantwoord en dan kan julle self hierdie oefening gaan doen. Okay, so we've discussed the questions and what they mean. We've looked at where we can get the answers. I'm going to show you a few more tips and tricks on how to answer questions, and then I want you to go and practice this particular text for me. Okay, julle, so 'n paar leidrade en wenke wanneer dit kom by vrae beantwoord. A few tips and tricks when it comes to answering questions. Okay, hoe moet die vraag beantwoord word? Die eerste ding waarna ons gaan kyk is hoe om die vraag te beantwoord. So firstly, we look at how to answer our questions. So sometimes the question will say skryf in vol sinne. So you have to make sure that your answer is a complete sentence. Partykeer sal die vraag sê skryf een woord. En in daardie geval moet jy slegs een woord neerskryf. Sometimes it will say only one word, in which case you only need to provide one word. Onthou, wanneer die vraag sê haal aan, moet jy aanhalingstekens gebruik. So when the question says quote, you need to include your quotation marks. Waar of onwaar vrae het gewoonlik 'n motivering nodig. True or false questions usually look for a motivation as well. So die eerste ding wat ons gaan doen is sê dit is waar of onwaar, en dan gaan ons die stelling bewys of bewys dat dit verkeerd is. So the first thing we're going to do with true or false questions is decide whether it's true or false. Then we need to prove why we say it is true or why we say it is false. Meervoudige keusevrae, multiple choice questions, usually you only need to provide the number and the letter. Just be sure that you read the question. If they have not indicated whether you must just write the letter, then you will need to write the answer out. But usually only the question number and the letter. Okay. Die volgende ding waarop ons wil konsentreer is die volgende. Spelling, leestekens en taal. So when we are answering our questions, the following is going to be very important. Your spelling, your punctuation, and your language usage. Okay, so here are a few examples of some really bad answers and spelling and use of punctuation and use of language. And here are some examples of some very good answers with the correct spelling, the correct punctuation, and the correct language usage. So go through these as well. Dan onthou julle het ek gesê ons moet kyk hoeveel punte elke vraag tel. We have to look at the mark allocation. Dit vertel jou wat jy by die antwoord moet skryf, because this will tell you how much you need to write as your answer. So as die vraag sê noem Themba se stokperdjies en dit is 3 punte werd, dan kan jy nie net een van Themba se stokperdjies noem nie, jy gaan 3 stokperdjies moet noem. So let's say the question, for example, is what are Themba's hobbies? They haven't specifically told you how many hobbies to list, but the mark allocation says 3. This means that you need to list at least 3 of Themba's hobbies in order to get the marks. You can't just say his hobby is playing guitar. That will only get you 1 mark. So ons kan nie net sê teken en lees nie. Ons moet 3 stokperdjies soek. Hy teken, lees en tuinmaak is sy stokperdjies. En dit is die korrekte antwoord. Dan is dit ook belangrik dat jy jou vrae presies soos in die begripstoets nommer. It's very important that you number each question according to your paper. Otherwise, it's very difficult for the teacher to give you marks if you accidentally skipped a question and the rest of your numbering is wrong because of that. So please make sure that you number exactly as your exam paper. Los 'n reël tussen elke antwoord oop. This is something that I notice a lot of you forget. Please remember to leave a line open after every answer. So ons gaan byvoorbeeld ons eerste vraag beantwoord, dan gaan ons 'n reël ooplaat. Okay, kan julle sien, daar het ek my reeltjie oopgelaat. Dan gaan ek nommer 2 beantwoord, 'n reël ooplaat. As daar byvoorbeeld meer as een vraagie per nommer is, soos by nommer 3, daar kan ek sien is 3.1 en 3.2. Dit kan ek alles onder mekaar skryf en as ek die vraag klaar beantwoord het, dan laat ek 'n reël oop. So if there are, for example, more than 1 questions per question, so question number 3 had a 3.1 and 3.2. You can write those below each other. Once you are done with the entire question, then skip a line. Okay julle, ek hoop hierdie wenke en leidrade het julle gehelp met vraag 1, vraestel 1. Onthou, as jy hard werk, sal jy kry wat jy verdien. I hope that my tips and tricks for question 1, paper 1 helped you, and remember, hard work pays off.